Hey guys, welcome back to Snack Time. My name is Ben, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at WebCheck. WebCheck is an on-demand OSINT tool for websites. First off, I want to show you how easy it is to use. Then we're going to go ahead and jump into the installation process. For installation, we will need Linux with Docker installed and Portainer. And if you want to host a website, we'll also need Nginx Proxy Manager. If you don't have any of this already, check out my previous video where I talk about building your own Linux-based cloud server. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, let's go ahead and jump on in. Alright guys, let's go ahead and let's find this software. I know for a fact it's on GitHub, so if we do a little brief search for web-check space GitHub, should take us right there. And there's Lissy93. Let's go ahead and click on this. And as we scroll down, I want to show you something really cool. If you don't want to set this up on your own server, you do not have to. She does have it hosted on a website already called web-check.xyz. Even though we can go to this website, I'm still going to run you through the installation, as it's super easy to do, it doesn't take much time. But I want to show you what this can do for you before we install it. Let's do a search on my website. Let's go to snacktime.com. Let's go ahead and analyze this. We're getting some really good information. I'm seeing where my server is being hosted as well as its IP address. I'm seeing DNS records, headers. I'm also, as I keep scrolling down, is there a social icon? It's pulling that. It's doing a little bit of a port scan. I can see what ports are open. I can also pull some site features, which can be really handy if you're trying to figure out what software that this website's running. So you can see I'm pulling up a bunch of information about WordPress plugins. I also see a sitemap, and check it out. I'm also able to pull my robots text, so I can see what's disallowed by search engines, what's allowed. But this is really good OSINT information that you can get immediately. One amazing feature that Elisa has put into this system is the ability to view and download the results in a raw format. So we can click on view results, and this is going to present us all the information that she's pulled. And I can also download this into a nice JSON file. So I can include this in any sort of OSINT reports that I'm doing. Really amazing software, really nicely done, Elisa. Let's install this software on our own server so that we can keep all of our searches to ourselves. If I go back to Lizzie's GitHub page, I'll find some instructions on how to install this. I'm going to go for option 3 on Docker. This is the basic Docker command that we can run either from our command line, but remember, we're going to be using Portainer to install this, so we're going to pick this apart just a little bit. I want to have a website that I can go to without worrying about port numbers or anything like that, so I'm going to go ahead and create another subdomain under my synhow.com. I'm going to call this one WebCheck, and I'm going to use my IP address of my server here. Excellent. And now it's time to head over to Portainer and let's install this guy. Before we deploy our container, I do want to set up a network that's specifically for WebCheck. Let's go to Networks. Let's look at our existing subnets. I see that 18 is used, but 15 doesn't look to be used. So let's go ahead and use 15 here. I'm going to go to Add Network. I'm going to call this one WebCheck. And I'm going to paste this subnet, and I'm going to change this 18 to a 15. I'm also going to change the -16 to a -29 because that will limit the number of possible IP addresses on this subnet. 16 is just way too many. Let's go ahead and create this network. Network created. Now we're off to containers. Ready for the fun part? Let's create our container. We're going to add container. Let's specify a name, web-check. Now it's asking for the image. We're going to go back to GitHub. We're going to take a look at this command here. This command is going to be forwarding port 3000 on our host machine to 3000 on our container. but we're going to be routing all of our traffic through Nginx Proxy Manager, so we really don't need that. The only thing we need is this last little bit here. This tells us the username on Docker Hub and the image. I'm going to paste this. I am going to add :latest so that whenever we need to do an update, it's always going to pull the latest version. Again, we're not going to do anything with the ports. We're going to scroll past this. For volumes, we don't have any data that needs to live outside of our container, so I'm not going to specify a volume. For networks, we are going to need to join our WebCheck network. And I want to show you this tab here, ENV. Stands for Environment Variables. If you look at the GitHub page and you scroll down, you'll see this section down here for specifying API keys, changing ports, and these settings are relayed to our container through environment variables. So if we did have a Shodan API key that we wanted to start using with the software, we would copy this key, add an environment variable, and for the name we would specify this, and for the value we would type in our API key. However, this is not required. We're just going to go with the defaults for now. I'm going to deploy this container. Now that our container is deployed, we do want to configure Nginx Proxy Manager, and to do that, we're going to have to join it to the network for WebCheck so that it can pass traffic. Let's click into our Nginx Proxy Manager. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. We can see it's joined to a couple of networks already. Let's specify our WebCheck network and join. Now let's head back to our containers. I want you to take special note of what you called this container for WebCheck. I'm going to copy this value and I want to show you a little trick. If we go back to our Proxy Manager, let's go ahead and add a proxy host. Now let's specify the subdomain name that we created in Namecheap. Called it webcheck.sinhow.com. And you see it's asking for forward hostname /IP. If we use the host name, that means no matter what that IP address is and on Docker, it will be able to forward it to the specific name. So we're going to use web-check, that's what we called it. It's asking for a forward port. We know what that port is because we saw it back here. It's going to be listing on port 3000 for the container. All right, let's specify 3000. Let's block common exploits, enable WebSocket support. Now let's save this. Our website's set up right now. We're ready to go. Only thing I want to add now is an SSL cert so that our traffic is encrypted. Let's edit this. Go to SSL, drop this down, request a new SSL certificate. I want to force SSL. I don't want anybody to be able to use unencrypted traffic, and I want to agree to the terms of service. Let's save. Now we can see that we're using SSL with the certificate from Let's Encrypt. If we click on webcheck.sinhow.com, it should redirect us right to our web page. And here we go. Let's try it out. It's pulling a lot of the same information that we saw when we did our initial scan, except this time it's being hosted on our own server. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in future videos.